Hello everyone, welcome back to the podcast. I'm Adrian Lloyd. This is just my stupid opinion. Okay, got a little bit to catch up on. I haven't really been active much over the last week. We just headed into midterm exams at my college, so I've been pretty hung up with that actually. But speaking of colleges, that's where we're going to start off our day today. Because it turns out throughout Ontario, 24 colleges are now prepared to go on strike this coming Monday. The strike is taking place between the College Employer Council and the OPSEU union. These talks have been going on for a while. When I first started back at college this year, there were talks as well about it going on. And even last year, they were making reference to it, although it didn't really go very far. But this year, it was mid-September, there was a vote whether to strike, and that didn't end up happening. But this one seems very real. So the OPSEU represents 12,000 faculty members across 24 different colleges in Ontario. I have a list of them right here up next to me. Or actually, it's on this side. So what is the problem? What's going on right now? Well, many faculty members feel that they are being exploited by their employer. The main cause for this is because there's not a lot of full-time positions available for faculty members, and many of them are on contract, don't have job security. And as they put it, many of them have to work second jobs in order to make things last. But from my personal experiences, it seems quite the opposite with my professors right now. I'm currently doing the construction engineering course at Algonquin, and all my professors seem to be businessmen and tradesmen first and college professors second. I'm sure many of them are staying in the field as their primary job. I mean, if they had to choose between teaching and between doing their trade, I think actually they would be doing their trade. So I think this is a little bit of union propaganda that's going out. So the last scheduled meeting for the College Employer Council and the union took place on October 10th, this past Tuesday. And in this case, the council ended up walking away from the table. The union has presented pretty much a consistent platform. It doesn't really seem like they're willing to budge much on it. And the council has been willing to accommodate to a certain extent, but they believe that the union is trying to take too much. The other thing that the union is claiming is that despite the counteroffers from the council, the union is also saying that the council hasn't addressed the main issues inside their 24-point platform, and that most of them, if anything, are being ignored. So what does the union want? What does the faculty want? What are their problems at the moment that they're having? So as I've stated before, is job security. Many of the faculty are claiming that, considering that they're on contracts that you generally don't last more than a year, there's no guarantee that they're going to be renewed the next year coming, and they want a more guaranteed full-time position. They're also worried about technologists coming into the field and taking over their teaching positions. I guess if you want to put it this way, they want to keep it pure, as in true members of the community teaching, rather than having a technologist is generally sort of a half and half. They kind of specialize a little bit of one, a little bit of other. Kind of more of a jack of all trades, kind of branches out a little bit. That's more of what a technologist does. And they want to keep it more genuine. Experienced field members. People who have done the job, who own businesses. These are the people they want. They don't kind of people who are kind of balancing between the two. I guess that's really what you could say. They're also talking about how part-timers are a big thing in colleges, and that is another way of the college being able to cut money in order by paying less towards their part-time, as well as they can no job security as being a part-timer. They also have a problem with the workload and how it's laid out at the moment. The way it works in colleges right now is any professor who helps tutor a student outside of work while they're doing grading at home or in the office doing office hours, they're not getting paid. During most of this time, they're not getting paid for it, but they feel that they should. So they want their pay to be accommodated to them to make up for all that money that they feel they're losing out on when they're, say, tutoring a student outside of regular scheduled hours. They also want to be more in control of their contact hours. This is generally when the professor is, in their office, when they're saying students can come meet me at this time, I'll be doing work at this time. They want to have more control over that as to what they can do during that time, as well as when they can take this time. They could balance it around their schedule much better if they have control over this. They've talked about wanting to have a much bigger say in what is taught in the college and universities. To a degree, I think this is a good idea, just because you should trust somebody with experience. Experience isn't everything, but experience is a big part. But right now, it is the college and it is the school board that decides what is taught, how it is taught, and the teachers just have to go with the flow. Very much the way it was throughout elementary school, high school. Teachers had no say in what was actually being taught. They want to be able to have more leniency on that. College isn't like your regular public school. It branches out a lot more, and you need to be able to... It covers a lot more subjects, and it's very hard to be able to schedule it, regulate it in that way. So I think giving the teachers more power to be able to decide what is necessary would be a good idea. Because, especially thinking about public school, there was a lot of shit that, when I think about it now, I would not have spent that much time going over if I was in charge. I would not spend 3 to 4 years with high school students covering parabolas. I spent so much time on parabolas, and it's even benefiting me now, because I do have, in my current math classes, physics classes, I have to map charts. So it is benefiting me. But I did not need 4 years of fucking parabola math classes in order to be able to do this. This is something they could have taught me at school now. So that's a good one that I would have changed up. Sure, teach kids parabola in high school, but it doesn't have to be one of the main focuses. I would be much more willing to teach kids actual legitimate algebra equation questions over teaching them about graphing. Graphing is not a hard concept, but solving algebraic equations can actually be quite confusing for people. So here's another thing I would have changed about public school. So when we're trying to regulate a university that has such a variety of subjects that you have to cover, you can't just regulate it in the same way. You can't just have a scheduled, we're going to follow this guideline. I think teachers should have that ability. They want better benefits, such as 100% dental coverage cost. They want to be able to maintain their seniority for 3 years after a contract ends. So that way, if somebody returns, they don't have to start on the bottom payroll again. And they want the council to invoke what is coming up, the Bill 148. That's that Kathleen Wynne released. That's the Fair Workplace Better Jobs Act, and most of you would probably remember that as the $15 minimum wage increase by January 1st, 2019. So this bill also covered many other subjects inside a workplace, such as vacation pay and safe workplaces. More specifically, less part-timers, more full-timers. That's what the bill is trying to pass. So the union wants the council to honor this, but they say so far the council has done nothing to prepare to put these actions into place before the bill is released. And they're also looking for a salary increase, more specifically a salary increase of 2.25% every year that their faculty member is there. And finally, they want to set up a faculty/student senate where both students and members of the faculty can come and have their opinions voiced towards the council, and have a better communication and be able to have a say in what to be taught. In some regards, the council has been willing to match what the union wants. In other regards, no. The council has argued that the provisions that the union wants for its faculty would would cost an extra $400 million a year throughout the province. And they claim it could result in the loss of thousands of jobs, most likely because they mean that they'd have to lay off staff if they had to put so much resources into this. They couldn't hire on as many people, I guess, is really what they're saying, even though they didn't say it straight up. So we've looked over what the union wants so far. Let's look over what the council has been willing to give them. So as you can see here, the college is offering a 7.75% salary increase. They're offering new full-time faculty maximum of $115,378 a year. New partial load hourly maximum, part-timers, will of $154.26 an hour. Improved conversion of contract faculty to full-time position. A plan to respond to Bill 148 when it becomes law. Wins bill, $15 minimum wage. More faculty autonomy over personal workload. Enhanced benefits and no concessions. So all in all, it sounds like the council is trying to accommodate the best they can. But the union has not been satisfied with this, and they've refused it every time and re-presented their own. And the way the union wanted their boost in salary to work, every year they would get their salary increase and then they would be capped there, so they couldn't drop. So every year they would go up in salary by 2.25%, and then they would stay there as a possible minimum, and the next year they would get bumped up. So essentially they couldn't drop below being paid that much ever. The counteroffer for that was the 7.75% over the next 4 years, and it's laid out right here in the wage increase. It would be 1.75 the first year, and then 2% increase in wage over the next 3 years, which sounds pretty fair. It's not an exact number they wanted, but it is a pretty decent bump up in salary, as well as the benefits they're prepared to offer the union members. It seems they're pretty much prepared to address most of what the union wants, but the union seems to still have a problem with this. So when I look at it from my perspective, as an actual student going to one of these colleges that is in danger of striking on Monday, the union, the faculty, have said that in doing this and preparing to go to strike, they have put the best interest of students at mind. Maybe 3 weeks ago, at most, I paid off my tuition for school. And now the faculty are prepared to strike. It puts my education behind, even though my professors, for the most part, seem to be against the strike. They don't want to strike, and have been very prepared to help us during the strike period to help us still learn and do work, which I'm very grateful for. It seems many of the other professors and faculty members aren't happy with this and are going to strike after thousands of us just dished out thousands of dollars for an education, and now that's being taken away from us. This is a little bit ironic too, because a little while ago, not long, one of the students in my class got lectured by our professor about respect, simply because he was murmuring to a student next to him. The professor told him to be quiet, to listen. He says, "Listen to me when I'm teaching," and he says, "I am listening." And then we all got a 5-minute lecture on respect. Well, I think it's a little ironic that I'm getting a lecture on respect because of what someone else does, yet the entire fucking faculty will take my money and then go on strike, claiming that they don't have enough to survive. See, they want the 10% increase over the next 4 years at 2.25% because they say that will be on par with it for inflation in Canada. Well, if we even take a look at the charts that are provided for the pay that is being given, this is after the increase especially. The minimum payment someone gets for working at the college would be $41,000. That's nothing to sneeze at. I mean, it's not the best, but it's not that bad to start, and you only work your way up. So already the faculty get pretty decent pay, pretty decent benefits. They want more of a say, which I understand, and actually I do support them on that. I do think that at least the faculty members should have more of a say. Students to a lesser degree, but yes, they should have some say. But aside further talk about job security, money, they're giving them a 7.75% increase over the next 2 years. So they're not matching them at the 10% mark, but the council seems to have given a lot in terms of negotiation. You can't have everything. When you go into negotiation, you can't have everything that you want. But they've offered them 7.75% increase. That's pretty decent considering they wanted 10%. That's 75% of what they were asking for. I thought at best maybe they would be offered 50% of what they were asking for. They got increased benefits. They are going to get increased job security, and they are at least saying that they will be giving students and faculty members more of a say. The union still has a problem with this, saying that they don't, certain things about the council they don't trust, but they're prepared to strike over this. Both sides have said that they are prepared to meet up for another meeting. There's no scheduled one, but they both say they will go to an unscheduled meeting before the strike deadline in order to negotiate. But somehow I get the feeling that nothing's going to happen. These negotiations have been going on for a while. Both sides have tabled almost the exact same policies every time, and both sides are rejecting the other. So I don't see how this is going to change any. And I actually do believe that come Monday I'm going to hear about a goddamn strike, and then I'm going to be pissed. It's just when you pay thousands of dollars to go to school for access to the facility and the teachers to teach you, when you're almost literally the one paying them, and college fees already are ridiculous. Mine, I technically say, is cheap, and it ain't that cheap. It's $2,000 for this semester, but in comparison to other people, it's cheap. One of the programs I initially applied for, and I did get into it, but I turned it down, was the firefighters. I was accepted. The tuition for the first year was $15,000. My point is that people pay a lot more for colleges for their tuition, and now they're being screwed out of their education. They'll still get it. We'll still get our education, but we're either going to have one of two things happen. We're either going to have to cram for the rest of this semester, or if the strike goes long enough, they're going to extend the semester into the summer. They may go where instead of the end of April, we'll go maybe to the end of May or something. I am not in favor of either of these. I came to do my education on time. I live in Ottawa. I don't have to worry about travel or being away from home, but many people do. And now they're over there getting screwed over. They have nothing to do. They're sitting in their tiny dorm rooms because they have nothing to do. So as much as I'd like to support the teachers, and I do support at least their cause of wanting to have more say in what they can teach, they're really screwing over a lot of people just to get a little bit more money, a little bit more benefits, a little bit more job security. And the last thing that I thought was a little bit interesting was most of my professors are not interested in the strike whatsoever. And I kind of work in the trades, and I was thinking about it, and I realized tradesmen generally work on contracts. They have to negotiate and bid for their contracts. This is probably why my teachers don't give a shit about this, because they're used to bargaining, to dealing for their contracts. So to them, it's just another business deal. They're probably experts at bargaining with people. But people who don't work on contracts, who are teaching there, are probably the ones bitching about this, because they don't have the job security that they want. Many people don't have the job security that they want, so. And this is a high-paying job, so I find it weird that when the higher the pay job, the more you can bitch and whine. You figure it'd be less. The more you get in money, you figure they would say, fuck off and do your job. And then when they're giving you less in pay, they'd be more willing to accommodate you because they don't really have much else. Either they say, give you your barbecue to keep you happy over the next month or two, or increase your pay for the rest of the time you work there. Moving on anyway. California went off the deep end over the last week or two. Yeah, it seems that lawmakers in California thought it would be a good idea to downgrade the law concerning HIV transmission. They turned it from a felony into a misdemeanor now. This includes both transmitting it sexually and also if you are a blood donor and refuse to tell the clinic that you are HIV positive. So California Governor Jerry Brown was the one who did this, and then he refused to comment on it after. Instead, he ends up sending out one of his fellow senators, Senator Scott Wiener, a member of the Democrats. And in speaking to the press, Wiener ended up saying, quote, "Today, California took major steps towards treating HIV as a public health issue, instead of treating people living with HIV as criminals. HIV should be treated like all other serious infectious diseases, and that's why SB 239. That's what SB 239 does." Apparently, Wiener doesn't understand the difference between this and other sexually transmitted diseases, or infectious diseases in general. In terms of sexually transmitted diseases, none is more deadly than the HIV virus. HIV blossoms into AIDS, and it kills you if you don't get it treated on time. And there is an actual group of the kink community, the sexually kinky community, that I think they're called bug catchers. And the point is, these are people with sexually transmitted diseases who either A, meet up to spread around willingly sexually transmitted diseases, or B, enjoy the fact of transmitting the disease to other people without knowing. It's one thing if this is, say, chlamydia, which may give you a burning sensation for a bit, but, you can get that treated. Herpes, that shit is always going to come back and is never really going away, but you can contain them, control them. HIV is deadly, and it has killed millions of people around the world already. For fuck's sakes, just a generation ago, there was the AIDS outbreak where millions of people died from it and everyone was terrified. You talk to people from that generation, they said they were literally afraid to have sex because they were afraid the person they fucked was going to kill them. That's kind of ironic. Fucking is supposed to be for good, and in this case it was used for evil. So as it says here, HIV has been the only communicable disease for which exposure is a felony under California law. The current law, Wiener argues, may convince people not to be tested for HIV because without a test they cannot be charged with a felony if they expose a partner to the infection. Once again, HIV, if going untested, can kill you. So the chances of people not getting tested if they think of HIV are pretty damn slim. However, if you do lower the law from a felony to a misdemeanor, that it will, if anything, convince more people to spread the disease around if they feel like it. I mean, we're talking about the difference from maybe a few months to a year or two in prison to 10 years or more. I don't know what the actual sentencing is, but felonies have heavy charges towards them, and misdemeanors generally have very small ones. In fact, a lot of times they'll just give you a slap on the wrist. So there's a very good reason it is being set as a felony beforehand. Because we've already been through this before, and it did not have good results. So anyway, Wiener goes on to say, we are going to end new HIV infections, and we will do so not by threatening people with state prison time, but rather by getting people to test and provide them access to care. First off, yes, give them access to care, because they'll need it for one reason or another. They're either going to need it because they have HIV, or they're going to need it because they've got some sort of mental disease which tells them to spread that HIV around. So either way, yes, give them access to care. But the way that these Californian lawmakers are presenting it, they present it as if anybody with HIV is being treated like a criminal. And that's not true. The people who get treated like criminals like this are people who willingly try and spread it around. And yes, there's stigma around HIV. Sometimes it's not even people's fault. They get it unintentionally. But the stigma comes because people don't want to get the disease. Unfortunately, in a lot of situations, that means that stigma affects their non-sexual relations, such as their relations with their friends. They just don't want to be around it. That is unfortunate. But they're not treated as criminals. There is a stigma. There's a reason for the stigma. When it's your friends and there's nothing sexual about it, I think people need to work through it and get over it and stick by their friends. If you're a possible sexual partner, a little more understandable. Supporters of the bill said women engaging in prostitution are disproportionately targeted with criminal charges, even in cases where the infection is not transmitted. They're probably talking about if a condom is used. But when they're talking about this, and they're saying they're being disproportionately targeted with criminal charges, I'm a person who would like to I'm pretty liberal on prostitution. I say that prostitution it's a woman's choice, and it's another person's choice. It's transaction, and if they want to do it, fine. Keep them off the streets and keep them safe. But all in all, I think people should be able to hire a prostitute if they want. The problem here that I can already tell it is nobody wants a fucking disease-ridden prostitute. So these prostitutes are not telling their Johns that they have HIV. Even if they're making them wear a condom, that condom can still break. The point of telling somebody that you're HIV positive is you need to be careful. Because even in situations like that, when the condom breaks, fluids can get exchanged, and then you're infected. So it's not as cut as dry as these Democratic lawmakers want you to believe. I can't help but feel that this sort of thing is going to help push other bad narratives. Maybe in this situation right now, I'm a lot more liberal on prostitution. However, the one thing I do see with this problem here, and where I might sound more like a conservative, is that I see this as paving the way for other situations. People saying, well, it's not that big of a deal. It should be stigmatized. Such as pedophilia. That's one that actually really scares me, is going to be, people are going to push and say, well, no, these people have a problem and they should be cared for. They shouldn't receive such heinous prison times. It's inhuman to do that to somebody with a mental disorder. These people are raping children. Now, this is just something that I've come up with. I have not heard this. The point is this can pave a way for something like that. There was a good reason this law was in place. Taking it down was a big mistake. I honestly think we're just going to start seeing all sorts of requests coming in from California about ridiculous things, such as pedophilia, people saying that it's just misunderstood, or that it's unfair to the people because of opportunity or mental disorder or this or that and the other. Alright, moving on to another subject. Yesterday, I came across an article from Mary Claire. Yeah, Mary Claire. I was browsing Twitter and it got posted out to me. I had a few different things lined up for this episode and I dropped them, and I've been doing research on them and notes. I dropped them in order to cover this because it was too priceless. Honestly, I wish the article was longer because it would have made my entire episode, but oh well. What am I talking about? Well, Justin Trudeau wrote an article for Marie Claire. Do you want to know what it's called? Yeah, you do. It's called Why I'm Raising My Kids to Be Feminists. Off the bat, I'm going to let you know he does have a daughter, but he has 2 boys, and he's raising them to be feminists. In an exclusive essay for MarieClaire.com, Canadian Prime Minister Justin Trudeau opens up about wanting his sons to, quote, escape the pressure to be a particular kind of masculine that is so damaging to men and to the people around them. Yay, Spike TV! As soon as I saw that headline and what he was talking about, I knew exactly what he was going to be saying. It was going to be a complete man bashing, talking about how terrible men are for doing male things, sports, drinking beer. You like girls? Goddamn toxic masculinity. Justin Trudeau just oozes of weakness. And because of that reason, he seems that he needs to attack every other guy for what they enjoy. What, you like to watch the UFC? Well, you're a toxic male. You like to willingly put yourself in mixed martial arts? Well, you're a toxic male. You like chasing girls because you happen to like girls? Well, you're a toxic male. It is such a meaningless term. That one too. Toxic male is such a meaningless term. The funny thing is if you Google it, toxic masculinity, oh, you'll find all these articles. In fact, the first article you'll find is the Feminists Wiki, which of course it goes into great detail about the terrible things that is toxic masculinity. And it says that it is, I believe, if I don't have the quote right now, but if I remember off by memory, it says that it is stereotypical male behavior that has been detrimental to society. Yeah. I'll be the first one to admit that guys create 90 to 95% of the shit that happens in the world. I mean, whenever you hear somebody killing somebody or doing this, that, and the other, you can almost guarantee it's a guy doing it. So don't get me wrong, there's plenty of shit that guys do that are bad. But, oh, because your man likes to watch sports, he's a terrible human being. There's one video I'm going to try and find after this, making this, I just thought of it. It's a male feminist who does a YouTube video with his wife. And he spends the entire time listening to his wife tell him about how bad he is and how bad men are and just apologizing the whole time. It's ridiculous, but this is the type of attitude that Justin Trudeau has adopted. People like Justin Trudeau are well aware that women don't have as much of a shitty end of the stick as they used to have. There's a lot of opportunity for women, even if there's still areas where things are unfair for them. But all in all, we live in a pretty equal society in terms of men to women. Some stereotypes, but in terms of the system itself, it is very open to both men and women. Especially men. Of course, men. It's always been open to men, but women have their place in society these days, even if there are a few small areas we need to work on. But people like Justin Trudeau seem to think that women still are being treated like shit. Yet he turns a blind eye to the way women are treated in the Middle East and other areas. Women in the West have it pretty damn good compared to these other areas, but he acts like every single one is a victim, and that every single woman wearing a burqa is empowered. How is this the narrative we've adopted? Better question, how the fuck did I buy into narrative at one point in my life? Seriously, how the fuck did I buy into that narrative? God damn. It was so obvious and in your face. I feel kind of dumb for not being able to see it earlier. But anyway, getting on to this article, Justin Trudeau goes on to say, I am in politics because every day I go to work to make the world a little better for my kids and for yours. Well, he may have a decent child benefit package, but considering how he's taxing the crap out of all of us for almost anything, he's not really doing a lot to help our lives get a little bit better. I do have the policy, which is a little more liberal, that taxes are something you need to pay. It is part of sort of paying your way in society. But I also have that more right-wing approach that taxes are way too high. I don't mind paying a bit of tax to make sure shit works and shit is fixed. I'm not talking about taking a huge chunk of my paycheck off to pay for this, that, and the other. But it goes on. I'm proud of the dedicated work our team is doing to make Canada more open, more inclusive, more just, and more gender equal. Yeah, that's very true. In fact, you passed a law over it. But some of the most important work I do is not just as a political leader, but as a parent. Yeah, but you gotta remember you're the leader of our country, so... Actually, the most important work you do is that work. Every day at home, I have the astonishing and humbling opportunity, together with my wife Sophie, to nurture empathy, compassion, self-love, and a keen sense of justice in our 3 kids. Just going to say right now that in this article, you might as well just replace wherever Justin Trudeau says justice, you might as well just replace it with social justice. I am so exceptionally proud of my daughter Ella Grace. She's growing up kind, super smart, a passionate debater, open to the world around her. I love Ella, and I worry, because as a father, son, husband, and citizen, I witness the unequal obstacles women and girls face every day. So somehow as a man, he knows more about the obstacles facing women than women themselves? Is that what he's trying to say? That doesn't really make a lot of sense. It's 2017, yet in Canada and around the world, women and girls still face violence, discrimination, stereotypes that limit them, and unequal opportunities that keep them from achieving their dreams. I can tell you in which part of the world women face this the most, Justin. Come on over, we'll have a talk sometime. It is maddening to me that my brilliant, compassionate daughter will grow up in a world where, despite everything she is as a person, there will still be people who won't take her voice seriously, who will write her off, simply because of her gender. Well, this is actually true, this last part. He's very right that there are people that will write off her voice because she is a woman. They're a pretty small percentage, and even a lot of guys hate them. We call those misogynistic fucks. And despite what you hear from the feminists, they're actually quite small in number. But yeah, guess what? Us guys hate them too. Those are the wife beaters. Those are the ones that gangs of guys go out and beat the shit out of. And back in the old days used to lynch. Those are the ones we're talking about. But the way Justin Trudeau presents it, he makes it sound like this is going to happen at every single opportunity. Because that's the way feminists present it. If you don't do exactly what they want, or say exactly what they want, or treat them exactly the way they want, then you are a misogynistic fuck. You know, sometime soon I'm going to bring my wife on and we're going to have a talk about feminism. She identifies as a feminist, but these days, more specifically, she says she's a second wave feminist because she has big problems with third waves. But when she says she's a feminist, really she just believes in the equal opportunities of women. So the very basics of feminism, she doesn't have really an ideology behind her beliefs. She just doesn't want to be treated as second-class citizen as a woman, which very, very rarely happens to her. It has happened on a couple of occasions. And that's where she goes all feminist ragey. But all in all, I could sit down and probably 80% of what we say on feminists these days will line up. So she'd be great to have on to give a little bit of first-hand experience, because even she's gotten into bitch fights with third-wave feminists online. But the Prime Minister goes on to say, I can and do work every day to shift these inequalities, even incrementally. But I do know that the most powerful medicine will come from Ella herself. Sophie and I can't be there with Ella in every hard moment of her life, to protect her when someone makes her feel small, to advocate for her when someone isn't listening, even if we wish we could. Parents will relate. I actually really like this part right here, because for the first time in my life, I've seen what looks like a bit of actual humanity from Justin Trudeau, which isn't him being a feminist robot or dodging questions as some fucking terrible politician, but it actually seems for once he's being a fucking person. Relatable. So the best thing we can do is help Ella learn, unshakably, that she is enough exactly as she is, that she has immense power and intrinsic worth, which no one can ever take away from her, that she has a strong voice which she can use and trust. That means raising her feminist. Full stop. Oh, really? Means raising them feminist, huh? Well, let's take a look at what it means to be a feminist.
This first place has got like all these orange, someone has put these all here. Someone's put like all of these orange, you gotta be kidding, it's just like this declaration, right, of male dominance. Stop doing this stuff, enough, stop! They paid people to put them all around here. This declaration of just the destruction of women's rights, the destruction of children's rights, they're everywhere, around the entire place. You've gotta be kidding me. Look at this. Who ordered this? Who made this happen?
Take the bag off.
No, I'm
You're
not.
gonna take the bag off.
No, I'm not.
They're not your...
Hey! You're raping me. This is rape. This is rape. This is rape.
Relax.
I love how she equates fucking colored sticks in the ground that are meant to alert people where the edge of the parking lot is. She's equating that to the destruction of women's rights and male dominance. I can't even say that with a straight face. And then, of course, the other part of being feminist, getting arrested is rape. Yeah, okay. Whatever you say, girl. But sure, Justin, if that's the way you want to raise your kids, okay, but I feel like they're going to be miserable if that's the way they're living. He goes on to say, I am eternally lucky to have an amazing partner in this project. Sophie continues to inspire and challenge me, and a few years ago she helped me reach a turning point. I was talking about teaching Ella that she can be anything she wants to be. Sophie said, quote, that's great, but how are you raising your sons to be strong advocates for women and girls too? His oldest boy is 10, and his other child is 2 or 3. His other boy is 2 or 3. These are problems they should not be in. They really don't have to worry about it. You have to teach them the basics, but they got their own problems going on, and I just think it's, I don't know, the fact that his wife Sophie is saying that they have to be advocates for women's and girls' rights, like, already, is a little ridiculous to me. Just teach them to respect women. That's all you have to do. That's what we've all been taught to do in this generation. You don't have to be a feminist in order to support and respect women. You just support and respect women, like you would anybody else. That's It's basic fucking living. We all do this every day. Every guy does. And sure, some guys cross the line and do things that women don't like. So, once again, a very tiny number of guys do this. And there's violence against women. Let's not dance around it. There is violence against women. But your kids don't have to worry about this yet. Just teach and respect women. Everything else falls in place. Simple as that. Gender equality is not only an issue for women and girls. All of us who benefit when women and girls have the same opportunity as men and boys. And it's on all of us to make that a reality. Our sons have the power and the responsibility to change our culture of sexism, and I want Xavier and Hadrian. Great. He named them after an X-Men character and a wall. But I want Xavier and Hadrian, when he's a little older, to understand that deeply. But I want to help them grow into empathetic young people and adults, strong allies who walk through the world with openness, love, and a fierce attachment to justice. I want my sons to escape the pressure of a particular kind of masculine that is so damaging to men and the people around them. I want them to be comfortable being themselves and being feminists who stand up for what's right and who can look themselves in the eye with pride. I've already talked about this before, this toxic masculinity. This last quote kind of caught my eye when he said it, though. He says, I want them to be comfortable being themselves and being feminists. It seemed to me like he was already deciding that for him. Like he was saying, you are going to be feminists, regardless. But as I stated earlier, you don't have to be a feminist to respect women. I am not a feminist. I'm married to a feminist wife. And I respect women, but I don't like third-wave feminists and what they're doing. And no, your sons, your male sons, don't have to be feminists. They really fucking don't. And it is not up to Justin Trudeau to decide that for them. Feminism is not just the belief that men and women are equal. It's the knowledge that when we are all equal, all of us are more free. It's a relentless commitment to look ourselves in each other, because that's how we start to build a world where everyone is treated with respect and recognition. And it's the unwavering conviction that all people have the same rights and freedoms. That's my right, that my rights are your rights. And it is only when our rights are fully protected that mine are too. I like this line here because he says that feminism, it will lead to a world where we treat each other with respect and recognition. Is that so? Well, we can just check out this video we have here. It was a protest that went down in the University of Toronto back in 2012 when a man named Warren Farrell came to speak. Warren Farrell is a male rights activist, but that day specifically he was coming to talk about the male suicide rate, something that was pretty well advertised at the time. But this is what happened.
It used to be called...
Sir, just stand at the back.
It is now called registered.
That's fine.
Just called
But right now, there's a temporary delay.
I'm super interested in talking to you, first of all, but basically we're here to shut down an event that is promoting the patriarchy.
Very frustrated. I was studying all today, and I took time out of my studies to come here.
Would you like to ask him why he's here?
I'm not sufficiently convinced that I'll receive an answer that isn't what I presented.
2 of my friends committed suicide, and I want the peace of understanding why that happened.
Wow. When did this happen?
It happened about 2 years ago. It was one after the other, like that.
Did you expect to get some addressing of suicide issue at the talk here?
Yes, I did.
What I have to ask on that, and I'll ask you, is why this space to talk about that? Like feminism, for example, offers lots of spaces to talk about mental health issues, talk about depression, both in men, women, and people who don't identify within the binary.
This is what men's rights look like! believe it's hate speech, right?
It is hate speech.
I've never heard him before. I don't even know what he's talking. I've never heard of him before.
We invite you to educate
I just
yourself.
want, yeah. So I just wanted to listen to him. I just wanted to see what this guy is and what he's talking about. But now I can't get it.
You should be fucking ashamed of yourself. You're fucking scum. You are fucking scum. Fucking rape apologist, incest supporting, woman hating, fucking scum.
Those are feminists protesting a talk about suicide because the speaker just so happens to be a male rights activist. If that was a feminist talking about women suicide rates, no problem. And women do attempt it more, but men are a lot more successful because men actually go for ways that will kill you. They'll jump off a building, they'll put a gun in their mouth. Women will tend to use pills. A lot of times, actually, they say women want to be rescued. In that situation, they are hoping, even though they're in a suicidal position, they are hoping that somebody will come and rescue them, pretty much give them a sense of living again. Guys are much more absolute in their decision to kill themselves. They are much more determined to kill themselves. That's why men are 4 times more likely to actually kill themselves during a suicide than women are. And as a joke by George Carlin went,
and it's interesting and it's true. Right this second, some guy is getting ready to bite the big bazooka. Because statistics show that every year 1 million people commit suicide. 1 million. That's 2,800 a day. That's 1 every 30 seconds. There goes another guy. And I say guy, because men are 4 times more likely than women to commit suicide, even though women attempt it more. So men are better at it. That's something else you gals will want to be working on. Well, if you want to be truly equal, you're going to have to start taking your own lives in greater numbers.
But I think this just proves that, in fact, that no, feminism does not lead to more respect. There is absolutely no proof of that. The article goes on to say, that world doesn't exist yet, but it can be built by people who have a strong sense of justice and empathy, who stand up for the rights of others, who seek out their own unique ways of creating more inclusive communities. Social justice warriors. That's the world we want to live in. That's the world we want our kids to live in. To raise our kids feminists is to recognize that all have a part to play to build that world. To raise our kids feminists is to honor their future because they have the responsibility and the power to shape it for the better. That's a utopian we'll never reach. We cannot reach that utopia. And before I end this, just one more snippet about the tolerance and the respect feminists have.